I can't fake it. I really cannot fake it. So I think over the years I've learned to trust my taste and my intuition and whatever, spiritual guidance I'm getting. Um, because I I think there's a reason why this is all coming together, and I think before
Hmm.
I may have not given myself the credit.
Welcome to 24/7 Artists.
Thank you.
If you are listening for the first time, this podcast is for the person starting out in the industry who's trying to get some advice, some career advice, life advice. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. Today's conversation is with one of my favorite people, not just in the industry, but in the world. Sarah Lorentzen is a A&R. She's a manager. She's a team mom. She's kind of an all, be it everything for us on multiple projects. So welcome to the podcast, Sarah. Do you want to tell us, if you weren't speaking to me, someone that knows you, how would you introduce Sarah to the world?
That's a good hi. Thank you for having me. Um, I don't know how to introduce myself. I think A&R manager is kind of like the easiest way to go about it. But I think a lot of what I do, who I am, is like yet to be established or is in progress or forever in progress. Not to like already start off super
Super
like
deep. You went
airy and
straight
whatever.
there, straight there. I love it.
But yeah, so I think that's how I'd introduce myself to a stranger, and then we'll see where the conversation went from there, and I probably give them a little more insight. But A&R manager sums it up for
I
now.
love it. Okay, so a work in progress, but for now, an A&R manager. So now,
Yes.
for the person listening who's probably heard this word or this title 1,000 times, and they have no idea what it is, and I'll preface with, I've heard multiple A&Rs at every level describe it different ways, so I don't even
Mm-hmm.
know if there's a standard anymore. But what is an A&R to Sarah? What is an A&R to you?
Um, I think I guess I'll define it in how I normally interact with the role. I think like traditionally it's, someone who helps put the records together and like signs artists, scouts, all of that. And that still is true. But I think especially with music becoming so much more accessible. Um,
I was saying, obviously you're a phenomenal
Mhm.
A&R. You put me on to Tems
Mhm.
early on before Tems was a household name. I didn't hear it or see it, but again, I've missed. I'm like 0 for 30 with artists. Davina was like, "Yo, these guys called Amigos and next," and I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so." And then like now they're the biggest name ever. So, but like, what was that process? And like, how did you hear Thames? How did you find out about her? What was it like early on? What was that like?
I honestly think, like, to be completely honest, I feel like I was even late to the party. Um, because I really did my deep dive like post Try Me release. Um, and I had heard her name bubbling for a minute, and I think, it was really like a word of mouth thing. Obviously, I have a lot of friends and family that are on ground in Nigeria, and um, just like other Nigerians, Africans in the industry. I think really was like a word of mouth thing. So it wasn't like, I was in like a jazz bar and I saw her get up on stage or um, anything like that. But yeah, I think that whole process was illuminating because it was like almost not, I don't want to say an accident because it's not an accident at all, but it was um, very unexpected how it
Mm-hmm.
all came together because I never really set out to sign Tems. It was more so
Mm-hmm.
just um, like, okay, this, because I was an assistant. Like, I wasn't even an A&R at that point. I'd never signed anyone before. I never really thought of myself seriously as someone who would A&R anything. I just was like, okay, I like music. This is an interesting path to go on, but at the time I was still like an executive assistant, fully books, phones, scheduling, all of that. So it didn't even really cross my mind when the Tems conversation came together. And I was working alongside, or one of my colleagues at the time, Tunji, who is also a Nigerian A&R. He was across that as well. Yeah. And so like he was really my partner in talking about the things that excited us on the continent. So with the Thames conversation, naturally we aligned on that, and it was more so like, okay, like how can we kind of do this together? Because I've never done this before. But even in that, like I reached out to her manager, not even on a Sony tip, but more on a management tip, in terms of Manny. Because Manny and her, Mannywellz, for those who do not know, I also manage. Manny and Tems were online, like talking back and forth about collaborating. So I reached out really as a manager to another manager, saying like, hey, like we see our artists want to collaborate, just wanted to kind of introduce myself and make sure that there's like a face to this email instead of like some arbitrary, like, yeah, whatever. And on the other side of that email was who is now like truly one of my best friends, but at the time I didn't know at all, is Wale Davies, who is one of Tens' managers. And so this is again quite a, I've never really told this story in this form, but yeah, like it all came together very, very organically. And I think that is like a consistent theme probably as I talk about my career this point. It has all been like very mystical in how things like align. But yeah, I reached out to Wale. I was like, hey, artists are collaborating. I'm Sarah, blah, blah, blah. And we got on a call and we started talking, and he's an artist, a musician as well. He talked about what he was doing. It was just like, it ended up being like, oh, two friends catching up. And I think we were both shocked at like how well we got on. And he was hosting his first Palm Wine Festival in London, and Thames was supposed to be on the bill. So I remember at the time I was extremely frustrated with, being at the desk, because I'm such a creative person and I do administrative things well. I think that's kind of how I fell into management. But I was at that point where I was like, okay, I need an outlet. Like I need a creative outlet. I need to be inspired again. And I kind of hit that wall a bit. And I was working with a woman named Shireen in the same kind of, we were working together in that office. And she was like, I was like, okay, there's this artist Tems and she's incredible and like really excited about her. And I would love to like, go see her perform, blah, blah, blah. Like she's doing this, she's performing in London, like doing the whole spiel. And she was like, well, why don't you just go to London? And I was like, what? I was like, she's like, just go. I'm like, I can't afford it. Because, this is like 2 days prior to the festival in London. And I was definitely not an A&R to be like, for my travel to be covered and all of that. I think, I didn't ask. But I was like, I can't afford this ticket. It's too much. And she was like, well, I'll pay for one of them. And so that's how I went to London for a weekend. And funny enough, Tems didn't even get her visa to go to the UK. So I ended up just kicking it with Wale. And again, it was like, once we met in person, it was just like so many things aligned, on like a friendship level, and then just, and like on a business level. Like it was just two people that I feel like should have and probably have in some way known each other previously, but it was just like all things kind of clicked. And it wasn't until a year after meeting Wale that Tems actually signed. After that, I went back to Lagos that December and, was just on ground and really just building a relationship. I think by then it was more so like, I want to support, and maybe this isn't like this is the most socially friendly thing to say, but like, I want to support the decision that serves you best, because at that point it was a friendship, it was a relationship. So it wasn't about like forcing a corporate pill down anyone's throat. It was like, oh no, this is like, I see the human in this process. This is not just like a product or a commodity. It is a person, and this person is like someone I'm very lucky to be calling a friend. So I think that kind of changed the whole dynamic, and it was really just a foundation of trust that got us to this point where we're working together um, in this capacity. But I think, however that relationship or that opportunity would have panned out would have been the best way it could have. So that's kind of what I was focused on. It was not necessarily like, oh, okay, this is my ticket to become an A&R. It was like, how can I help in my position? And however it pans out is cool with me. And then yeah, and luckily it ended up, working in Sodi's favor, and she joined the RCA family, as well as since '93 over in the UK. Shout out Glenn. And yeah, it has been quite the learning experience, because, like I mentioned, it was such. I mean, obviously now seeing how the world has responded to Tems,
Mm-mm.
it was not like a small thing. And and Tunji and I talk, or used to speak about it a lot, is like, this is a crazy first. And I thank God for the you know trust in me to like deliver on this opportunity. But uh yeah, it's been,
You're definitely a
I've
quick
been learning
learner,
every day
and
since, but
the
that's how
funny
it kind
thing
of came
is,
together.
you because it's funny you telling a story and I remembering it. It's like it feels like it wasn't that long ago, but I guess it was a few years ago now. But like I remember you being so excited that it didn't feel like work. Like I
Yeah.
remember that London trip to you almost felt like not even a vacation. It was like, yo, I'm getting the ability to like
Mm-hmm.
go and do this, and like they're paying half the like. I just remember you being so, and I remember feeling like, yo, this is gonna work. I don't know what work looks like, but it's
Yeah.
gonna work for her just because she's so excited about it. And usually when you're that excited about it, you work a little harder. You're willing to deal with a little more crap. You're willing to like put up with a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
because the reward is like, yo, I can't believe I get to do this. And then obviously Tems blows up, and you guys work on records. The Manny record happened, and like you
Yeah.
said, it was a crazy first, but then that sets the bar for you now, right? Because now the first artist you've brought to the table in this A&R role is a
Mm-hmm.
global phenomenon who's like one of the biggest artists in the world, and I think one of the fastest trajectories I've seen come out of Africa ever. So like, does that put pressure on you in your role, or are you more just like, if I don't find another Tems, I don't have to A&R another project? Or do you feel like, no, I have to find more, I have to do this again?
I mean, I find that I don't really worry about that too much. I think, um, oh God, my job's gonna watch this and be like, who the hell do we have on our payroll? Um, but I think, part of it is,
Mm-hmm.
keeping ears to the ground for the sake of, the responsibility that is my job, and my role. And I, take that into consideration. However, I am someone who, like, I can't fake it. I really cannot fake it. So I think over the years, I've learned to trust my taste and my intuition and whatever, spiritual guidance I'm getting. Um, because I, yeah, I think there's a reason why this is all coming together. And I think before
Mm-hmm.
I may have not given myself the credit of, having good taste, having a good ear. I'd be like, yeah, I like good music, but like there's so many other people with like better taste or who know more. I remember a big thing for me was like, I didn't know all these producers and these writers. I learned what publishing is after I started at a label. Like, so I really didn't have all this background knowledge. I wasn't obsessed with knowing who put what record together. Like, I didn't fan out about music in that way. The way I interacted with music and still do is very much so from an educational standpoint, in terms of like, if I want to learn more about a culture or a place or a community, I go to the music. And that's how I've always been. And I didn't realize it really until very recently that that's how I interact. It was like as a discovery tool for culture and for just like understanding the world and having a broader perspective of the world in a grand scheme, not necessarily like just, yeah, I'm trying to work with this producer because he produced that and that went platinum. And I still don't know. Like, I still don't know. And I want to keep it that way, because I think that colors the creative process. It becomes less about the music and more about the accolades. And I truly have no
It's a trap.
interest
Yeah,
in
it's
being
a trap.
steered by
Chasing the
accolades,
next one, the
because
next one, the next one, the next one.
what is that?
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Um, exactly. Exactly. So, I mean, in regards to the next artist, I think like I just gravitate towards people I'm really excited about and who are good people fundamentally first. Like, I think, at this point, I've come into contact with a lot of artists and a lot of people that are talented, and the people that I go to bat for are the people that I connect with on a level outside of music, just on a personal level. So I think it's like, it is about the taste, and it is about like the music that's being created, because I think there's an intangible um, language and relationship that music is able to communicate. So like, I will pay attention to the things that make my ears perk up, and I'll pay attention to the things that I'm playing like 2,000 times a day, not just because it's like a catchy hook, but because there's something I can't quite place, and I kind of dive into that. And if the person behind that song, behind that record, ends up being a phenomenal human being as well, then it just makes it all the more worthwhile. But I think, thank God, I've been very drawn to and like surrounded by both people on the business side and on the creative side, the artist side, that either share those ideals or are just like really sick people. And I love working with them. So I think in signing, the next artist, it's a combination of that. Obviously,
No,
acknowledging
and the
that
funny
it's
thing
quite
is,
literally what I'm
I don't
hired
think you have
for.
anything to worry about
But
with the label
yeah.
you're working for, watching this and freaking out, because I think they know that that's the key to your success, right? Like I said, the job of the A&R is to be a middle person that has
Right.
to represent both sides' interests, and that's such a rare thing, right? It's like, if I have a lawyer, my lawyer's got to be in my interest. They can't really care about the person on the other side of the table, even if that's my wife or business partner, or it's usually somebody
Right.
you're connected to, right? If I have an agent, the agent has to represent me. They can't worry about the venue or the festival. It's me.
Mm-hmm.
But an A&R is a unique role in our industry where they have to represent the artist, but they
Right.
are hired by the label, right? You're paid by the label to represent the artist. And so a good A&R is one that's willing to go against the label to say, you may not see it, you may not understand it, but this is the person. And like you said, those are the intangibles beyond talent are going to be like, does this person, like, do we resonate? Are we connected to the same things? Are we moved by the same things? And when you are, like you and Wale, or like you and
Right.
others in your circle of artists and creatives, like I said, it makes the hard work easier, because it's not easy what you do. And we'll speak to that next. So obviously, as an A&R, finding talent, making sure they're good, you kind of fill in the gaps and fill in the cracks for them, and make sure they're happy along the way, especially with what the label's supposed to do. Then you're also a manager, right? So obviously we mentioned Mannywellz. If I got $1 for every time his name is mentioned on this podcast, that alone will make me a millionaire. But obviously Manny is near and dear to our hearts at 24/7 Artists, and in our family's hearts, and how we got together, right? How we connected was, I was an in-place manager for Manny. I will put my hand up and say I'm the worst manager in the world when it comes to artists. Not because I don't care, but because I have too much shit going on. And I think a great manager has to focus on that other person more than they focus on themselves. And it was just like, I can't do that and run a business and run a family. Like, I can't. So I was like, yo, we got to find someone to replace me, like, ASAP. And Manny was like, yeah, I've got this lady, Sarah. And I was like, I don't know, Manny. Like, I thought it was someone he was just trying to holler at. Like, so I was like, I don't know, Manny. Like, we'll see. And the funny thing is, we worked together and didn't meet for years. We weren't in the same physical room for years. we were just on calls and emails. But like I remember
Yeah,
like the first
that's
call, you just had your
crazy.
shit
Yeah.
together, and I was like, yo, like she is legit. She's definitely much better than me. So I'm stepping down now officially to this whatever role we call it. But now like so as an A&R, you again you're hired by the label, you work with the artist, and that's Fields. Now as a manager, where you're responsible for this person's success, like it falls on you almost more than the artist in times. What's the difference in those two
Hmm.
roles, and which do you prefer?
Phew. um, I Man, I mean, I think management is just like there's
Oh, you
always a
can
fire
say
under your
whatever you
ass,
want.
like always. And I don't know, can I say that? um, I think like that responsibility, if you are, sensitive to that, is kind of what is like at the core of everything. It's like, yes, you are the decisions you make, the phone calls you pick up, the emails you respond to, all of that affects someone's life so directly and so kind of a lot of times immediately. Um, and I think management is definitely more difficult, or it's proven to be more difficult, I think, but I only say that because as a developing artist, as an upcoming artist, you don't have necessarily the financial means to hire your dream team and build it out. So again, it's this like notion of wearing multiple hats. You are the manager, you're also the publicist, you're also the marketing person, you're also just like the confidant, the friend. Like, so you have to be all of that at all times. You have to essentially like move as an extension of this artist, and like so that the doors that you walk into not only serve you but serve that artist. And I think um, from a developing standpoint, I think it's definitely more difficult because you have less to lean on. You have to kind of stand on your 2 feet, and like hopefully people come along the way, obviously, like our relationship and a few others that have invested into like the Mannywellz brand and everything have been there as a supporting force. But I think in the day to day you're like, oh shit, okay. This is my responsibility, and this is something like very real and very serious, and something I really don't take for granted. I think the amount of trust that it takes uh, to have a successful manager artist relationship is very special. And I think it's a dynamic thing as well. So it's not like you get it figured out one day and you're good. It's real life happens. Like we're mentioning, like I have a whole other career as well simultaneously. So um I think there in this particular situation there has been a lot of grace and understanding on both sides, I think, in how to navigate this. Because another first, like I didn't manage anyone else before Manny. Um, so, and that came together very like serendipitously as well. And so you have to have that room for people to grow. Otherwise it becomes a bit
Yeah.
suffocating in a way. And especially when real life happens. And so I think like the thing with A&R is like, while I'll still say it's like very much so integrated into my everyday. So like I think, that distinction between work and life is or work and personal is very hard to define sometimes, but I can kind of compartmentalize in a way because I know that this is associated with a company and this is something I'm hired to do and da 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 da. And like my day to day will interact with that. But
Mm.
I think with management, it is like not something you take off. It is like this, like when you wake up at 6 a.m. to answer all those emails, or when you sleep in and like miss out on three, like you're still wearing that management cloak regardless. So it's like these decisions impact your role, impacts the person, and I think everything
Yeah.
becomes a lot more like shit. Like, oh my god. But it is absolutely a privilege as well. I think being on the artist side, and I feel like it kind of speaks to my previous story with Tems. I think
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy being an advocate for artists, especially in a world where, corporate business runs a lot of things and success is defined by these markers. And I feel to be on the creative side, to be on the artist side, to be an advocate and to try and find those avenues to reach the goals that they're defining for themselves, not necessarily the world is, or KPIs are, or whatever it is. Um, that feels a lot more fulfilling to me. So it's kind of
Yeah.
balanced. I can't say that I
I
prefer
know they
one or the
both have their
other,
challenges. We've
but
definitely been on
yeah.
chats, and one of the things I'll say is I enjoy when the Sarah
Yes.
advocating for artists email hits my email, because I've seen you talk to like the biggest companies in the world with like a confidence that I'm like, damn, like she's going to bat for this dude. And the funny thing is, like, I think the world looks at an artist situation at any level and sees this like big amazing thing, but behind the scenes it's literally like a bunch of people just scrambling trying to like figure shit out. And I can say that because like we've done stuff with like really big artists and really big brands,
Yeah.
and we've done
Yeah.
stuff with artists who are just starting out with no songs and brands who have, no sales, and it never changes. So like I love when I see you say, no, I see your offering is
Right.
this much, but we really need this much. And almost every time the brands have come back, we're like, all right, so like we'll do it.
Mm.
And that's something I saw you kind of like get more comfortable with over time. So is that something you pick up naturally? Are you like talking to the other managers in your life
Yeah.
and circle? Like, are you talking to Tunji and learning from him and learning from Wale and learning from others? Or is it a blend? Like, how are you learning to become a manager? Because someone's listening to this and they're either managing someone or getting ready to manage someone or thinking about managing someone, and they're
Right.
where you were. They're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, how do you learn to become a good manager or a great manager?
I think one thing I probably should have done better is, ask for advice from other people that are doing something similar. I think eventually I got there, but I at first I think it was still kind of like that moral obligation to follow through. I think even like with Manny, um, when I said I was gonna be his manager, it wasn't like there was no but. It was like, oh, okay, this is it. And however my life has shape shifted since then, um, there's still like I'm still there. That's a commitment that I followed through on. So I think like a lot of it is when you make that commitment, you figure it out. Like if you really care, you'll figure it out. And I think that again boils down to a relationship, not to be like just keep beating a dead horse, but I think when you really care about someone, same way like if your little brother wants to you know get into the Olympics, you want to support his practices, you're going to show up, you're going to drive him to practice, you're going to whatever. um I don't know why that's the example I think of, but it's it's that care and that devotion to someone and their craft. And I think that was really the driving force. It was okay, I wanted to get into the music industry. I really didn't have any connections when I first started at all. I didn't know anyone in music. Um, and when I met Manny, it was just an interest. And it
Mm-hmm.
was, okay, this is a person. And that didn't come together for a few years. Like, we started working together years after we first met. Um, and I had absolutely no experience, but I had a great respect for this person and his personality, his goals, the things that his principles, the things that kept him centered, and also for his craft. So it was every bit. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. And I think that's how I kind of move through life, because my life seems, and everyone's life is like a culmination of
Mm-hmm.
first. You're doing something for the first time a lot of times, and I think what I cannot stand is a bunch of people acting like they have it figured out. You actually don't. Even if you're a professional and
Mm-hmm.
you're an expert, and everyone is always figuring it out. I am for sure still figuring it out. Um, So I think, yeah, with Manny, it was really
Mm-hmm.
learning from just like kind of throwing myself in the deep end and just like faking it until like he would
Mm-hmm.
ask me a question. I'd be like, I have no idea, but I'm not going to say I have no idea. I'm going to research. I'm going to ask. I'm going to try and figure it out. And then I'm going to come back and be like, okay, this is the answer. This is what I think could be the answer. I could be wrong, but like this is what, this research has led me to. And then eventually I think once I became a bit more entrenched in like the industry, there was a lot more people that I could ask advice of. I think, while it absolutely 100% is that person because he's similar to me, like we have a lot of creative interests. He is a manager. He works. He does everything. That man does. I don't know how he does it. Tunji as well. Even my friends, like friends that my friend Kayla is actually the person who told me about the
Okay.
opening at RCA, and she is in the marketing department. So like our growth has been like very parallel within the company. And Shireen, the person that bought that London plane ticket, like she was my saving grace. When shit hit the fan, I had her back and she had my back. And so I think I've been really blessed. Brianna, there's so many people I could like name that have just really been. Brianna Ayamang, who I interned for at Rock Nation. That was my very first music internship. And she, I don't know how. I mean, we're friends now, but like I just don't know why she really bet on me. But she was someone who like always had me in mind, always like helped me out, was happy to give me advice. So I think again, I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by like really just great people. And through their friendship, I've learned. So not necessarily actively seeking answers to my problems, but just by proximity to people who are also guided by what I believe is the
Yep.
right thing. Kind of learn. It's like an exchange, and it doesn't necessarily have to be spoken. It's just like, oh, I see you did this, and I've seen your growth, and I take tips from that, and we might have a candid conversation. And it's all very like, it's like a constant exchange of information and support. And
Yeah. No,
yeah,
I
I
agree.
think
I
that's
think
really how I've been able to learn throughout this whole
people will
process.
always or will usually help people who are helping themselves. And from the first time I interacted with you, I just remember, like I said, you had your shit together, but you also were like, you were about it. And I also respected that you would say on a call, I'm not sure, let me get back to you, which like is a great thing to hear from somebody who is not, we always talk about the different types of managers. Like there's the go get the big manager, the industry manager who's like super plugged in, been in the game forever, and you may be one of many. There's the day to day, who might be their first go round and is more directly connected. And then there's that like new no experience manager, and it's just like relationship and trust and faith. And knowing you were that, I appreciated like day one, you would have no problem saying like, let me go
Yeah.
find out. But then more importantly, you would go find out. You would send a follow-up email to text, or you would like, and you weren't afraid to fail, which I think is a key
Right.
ingredient to success that so many people miss out on. Like, just try it, just see. Like you'll be like, I don't know, let's give it a shot. And some things work and some things don't. But you're almost always remembered for the things that work and not the things that don't. I think, looking back now for me, I realize like all of my missteps and all of my mishaps, when people meet me, they don't bring that up. They bring up the few things that I did well. And it's like, if you knew how many times I messed up before that happened, you would understand. Like,
Right.
so I applaud you for that. But then I also like the fact that you mentioned all those names, because it always boils down to relationships. And so if you don't put in the application for the internship, if you don't apply for the job, if you don't take that first step, it never happens. And so if you're listening to this, just like do that first. And then when you're there, go all out, and not like make an ass of yourself trying to prove you know the most, but just like go all out and like try, and people will help you. And then always understand, which is I think a column or a principle for 24/7, is no one knows everything. I say that even though we're an artist education platform, like we are here to learn as much from you as you from us, because like we're literally figuring it out together, right? Even as like I could explain publishing in my sleep, but I've come to learn like different people take information different ways. So like I've had to learn like to listen to how people learn so I can better explain something to you. So it's like if I don't learn that and I just put out this is how I learn publishing, so I'll share it with you.
Right.
Most people don't learn how I've learned. I've come to understand that. So like it's something that like I appreciate in you as well, where you've said like, yo, like everyone doesn't know what they're doing, and like that, you know, Davina V's big thing is like, yo, if nobody knows, then everybody knows, right? Or if everybody knows and nobody knows. So no matter how you look at it, just do it, because like we're parents now, right? So it's like I'm a parent of a child for the first time. It's my first. And so who do I go to figure out like how to be a great parent? Are you good? All right, welcome back, and sorry for the technical difficulties in this digital podcasting world of 24/7 artists. One day we will have our own physical studio. We will be in the same place. We'll be flying you out. Imagine that, first class.
Ooh, yes.
Put you in a nice hotel, all that. We speaking it out. But yeah, so you know, as we're getting closer to wrapping, one of the things I definitely want to speak to you about is like success, right? You are, to me, super successful, just because like at your age, I didn't have 85% of what you have figured out or accomplished. But like, I'd like for you to speak about like success and kind of like the importance of it, and then like how you and the artist define it, and then how you find that balance between your success versus the artist success you're either A&Ring for or managing.
Right. I mean, it's like one of my favorite things to talk about recently, I think, because it's the motivator. It's like the driving force behind a lot of people's careers, and you know, this idea of lives, not even like whole lives, is this, you know, you want to be successful, you want to make it to some degree, you want to be comfortable, you want whatever that like blue sky looks like for you. And I think it's my favorite thing to talk about recently, especially in the context of music, because I find that my blue sky looks completely different. And not in a way that's like, oh, like I'm so different and like, you know, I'm above success. Like it's not that at all, because I think, you know, I'm definitely, I definitely have been influenced by, you know, what the world deems successful. So I'm not even gonna count myself as like, yeah, not that I can't be impressed by that. But I think a lot of my conversations have been kind of challenging what success is, what success looks like. I think for me personally, success is like being able to be in control of my time more than it is about like having a billboard feature or going double platinum on a record that I really, not that I don't care, but I don't care. Like I think by virtue of taking the right steps and moving in a way that's just sound and puts people first and kind of is just honest and true to who you are and who you are working with. I think by virtue, those like, I guess, more traditional markers of success will come to be. I don't think that anyone can work so hard day and night. And, you know, obviously there are circumstances that prevent it in some situations. But I think like if you are really devoted to what you do and what you care about, elements of whatever is deemed successful will kind of fall your way. But I think for me, it's like, my ideal life is being in control of my time, being able to travel the world, being able to like live on a farm and create films and work with artists that I'm really inspired by. And like, so that is success for me. That doesn't necessarily mean I need to make $1 million. It doesn't mean I need to be an exec or a label owner or CEO. Like those are not the things that motivate me. And I think because of that, even with artists that I work with, I stay away from defining success as like whether it be streaming value or charts and da da da. And I think I'm able to like code switch in a way because obviously within the label system these things are important for generating revenue, for global awareness and all these things. And I'm not knocking them as like things that are bad. I just think that our life is taught to revolve around things that really don't bring any substance to us. And I always give this example. So there's like maybe a year or two ago, I forget how I came across her music, but there's this artist named Miriam Hassan who's from, Northern Africa. The community she was a part of is called Sahrawi, which I need to do my research, but I'm not sure what that, like where that is geographically present day. But she was a refugee. Her brothers were, killed in the war, and she used her music as a means to bring her community within these like refugee camps together. And she is an incredible vocalist. Like, I have no idea what she's saying in any of her songs, but like it was music that made me feel. And I remember I heard this music and it was like this blend of Arabic with this like jazzy undertone, and it was so lovely, and I became fully obsessed. I tracked down who distributed, she's late now, so I tracked down who distributed her music in Spain, and I reached out and I was like, yo, can I get a vinyl? Can I get a CD? Like, I'm a collector when it comes to that, so I like that tangible thing. And after like a few months they finally responded and they're like, oh yeah, like, we have these CDs. So they shipped them out from Spain, and it was like this signed CD from, anyways, I say all this to say, like, her music, she's by no means a household name, but her music impacted her community and is impacting people to this day. I learned a lot about her as an artist, about her community. It opened my eyes. Again, this is like going back to music as a discovery tool. Opened my eyes to another part of the world that I may not really get to interact with in real life. Hopefully I do, but who's to say that her impact is not more or not as valuable or as important than a Bob Marley, who was a household name, who has like very clearly, whether it be from a cultural perspective, from a lyrical perspective, with reggae, with the genre, like, obviously we can all agree that Bob Marley was extremely impactful, and his message is something that still resonates today. And Bob Marley is my favorite artist, so like I'm not even comparing the two. And I think, again, there's no need to compare, but it is just acknowledging that what Miriam Hassan was doing for her community is success, and what Bob Marley has done for this world is also success. And they did not, like, one did not have a more fulfilling life than the other. One is not more valuable than another. And I think that's the easiest way for me to kind of, that's an image I always go back to when it comes to how I'm defining success for my career, how I'm speaking about success with my friends, with other creatives, with artists. I think, there's this obsession with wanting to blow and wanting to be on charts and wanting to be on world stages. And I completely get wanting to your music to travel as far as it can go. But if it doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean it's not success. Like, everyone has their own path, so long as you're doing everything that you can and you are operating from a place of honesty and truth and authenticity, that you will have a level of success if you decide to acknowledge it. Mm-hmm. If you decide to open your eyes to the fact that it doesn't necessarily mean, like, because even when you get to those things, you sell out Madison Square Garden, you do the O2, you do all the big world stages, everyone knows your name. What then is success at that level? Like, because how many people are really satisfied once they have? Like, that's just human nature. So success is a moving target. And so it's like, if you become fixated on a moving target, then you have tunnel vision that blocks out this very beautiful life that we were privileged to live. And so, not to be like super like,
You got to
I'm
do a
not
TED
trying
talk.
to be.
You got to do the
Yeah, I
TED
know.
talk. I'm booking you.
It's just, and it's something I have to remind myself of. It's not even like, it's an active practice to think that way. And I'm not saying it's the right way to think, or like it's, whatever. If you still want to sell at the O2, it's bad. I get it. I completely get it. But I think there's like a level of contentment, and I think it also drills back to purpose. It's like, okay, well, why do you want to sell out the O2 or Madison Square
Mm-hmm.
Garden, or why do you want to be a Billboard #1? Is it for the accolade? Is it because your validation is coming from people,
Mm-hmm.
or is it because you want your message to reach everybody, far and few between? And I think it's it comes back to like you really being honest with yourself in that question. For me, it's like, well, why do I want the things I want? Like, is it because someone told me that this is what will look good, what will sound good, what will feel good? Or is it because this is what like I'm drawn to naturally? I'm drawn to in spirit, but all, like, so I think, yeah, it's a balance. And it is, yeah, it's just an active practice, I guess, at the end of the day. But I love talking about success and understanding also like what other people think is really valuable and fruitful and additive to their lives, because we can have a completely different definition, and again, it's fine. Like, no one's definition is better than another. I think it's just like making sure that you are aware of the fact that life is a lot bigger than how we tend to define it.
Yeah.
So
It's a lot bigger, and it's always immediate. So I fell victim early in my career, and multiple careers, of like the accolades. And then I was blessed enough and fortunate enough to reach almost every accolade, if not every accolade I've ever wanted. And to your point, I never felt more fulfilled on the other side of the accolade. So like whether it's the Emmy that was in our studio, the Grammy, or the best of, or the Billboard, or the, like, there's nothing that we said we wanted to do that we did. It was like, man, now we've made it. It almost just opens the next, like, okay, now that's the next thing. And then those times pass, and the people pass, and life changes, and you realize that like you missed appreciating the actual success, which was like the relationships and the people in your life and how you made each other feel. And so, and this chapter of my life, and what Davina and I have done, and I see it in like how our vision boards have changed, is like, I can only be successful today. I can't change what happened yesterday, and I for damn sure have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. But like today, if I can like get out of bed and like see my kids off to school, like that's a successful moment. Like that's something that's like designed for me because they're my kids, and like I know what makes their day if I like just get up and say, hey, have a great day at school. And if I'm not in the country, if I can call and make sure like they hear my voice, and like that's a successful day. If I can tell my wife I love her and like just give her a kiss and let her know like, yo, I've got you, that's a successful day. If I can answer the phone when my parents call, that's a successful day, because like those things aren't going to be forever. Like my kids aren't always going to be in a house, and people change and people leave, and like, so I realized like I value that 1,000 times more than the other things that I used to value. Like we've started 24/7 Artists, and like we'll put out content now, put out assets that get like 13 plays, and I'll have like people like, oh man, like, you know, don't you want to boost it? Don't you want to make it look bigger? And I'm like, nah, because like I've had content hit 1 million people. I know like it doesn't change. As long as the 13 people who press play love it, I'm good. And what I've learned is like it goes from 13 to 1,300 before you know it. And it's always new to somebody else. We'll put this out, and whether 100 people listen to it or 100,000 people, as long as one person is like, man, like Sarah really gave me like I'm going to go ahead and take that leap of faith, or I'm going to apply for that job. You don't even know if like the person that watches this becomes like the next big thing on the executive or the artist side. And like I said, your impact is yet to be determined. So I don't care if 1 million people watch this. I just hope it reaches people with the intent of like, man, like I'm going to go do it. That's what success is for me. And then what I've learned is when you focus on that and just making the most of it every day, it compounds, it builds. So then when you turn around and look, if you just focus on like being great every day and like and achieving what success is, real success for you, that when you look back, you'll see the accolades and all those things. Like you said, you may not want the million, but I know you'll be a millionaire. You may not want the write-ups, but you're getting them anyways. I've seen your name in Billboard and like other magazines. Like, you may not want the biggest albums, but Tems is one of the biggest artists in the world. But it's because I've seen, like, especially with you over the last few years, like, you've shifted this thought of like, yo, I'm just trying to make the most of this. Like, I'm in LA right now, I'm gonna enjoy LA. And when I'm in Lagos, I'm gonna enjoy Lagos. When I'm in the UK, I'm gonna enjoy UK. You're all over the map. Even in booking this interview, I was like, what time zone are we booking this for? But like, if I could go back and tell you 5 years ago that would be your reality, you'd probably be like, yeah, right, you do. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be not even just bi-coastal. I'll be like multi-continent, living, traveling, hustling, working, and I'd be like, yeah, like I came back from the future, and that's what you're doing. So I hope someone listens to your message and like really appreciates it, because we drive artists, we deal with multiple crazy, like, because that's my shit on the calls. I'm never worried about like the numbers, the colors, the lines. I'm like, yo, what are we doing it for? Why are we doing it? I literally just dropped a video today called like, what's your why? If you don't know that, then whether we get the biggest slot, whether we get the biggest headlining feat, whether we get the biggest record deal, it almost becomes bitter afterwards, because once you realize that's not it, you almost resent that success. But if you can be like, yo, I just want to make music with really dope people and like share it with people I love and have people like love it like I love it, or like and have it impact them in a way that makes them feel something. If that's what you want to do, you could do that today. You don't need the record deal. You don't need the look. You don't need the playlist. So I hope someone takes that, because I preach it, but coming from someone much more successful than me, like you, it should resonate a little more. All right. So as we get to the end of this episode, and I really appreciate your time. As I told you before we recorded, this is ongoing. So like, this is a part of, we have combos all the time, just you and I, but like, we will check in, and my hope is that like by the 10th time you've done this conversation, that the people following your journey will see your growth and see like your evolution, and see that it's okay. Like what she said in episode 1 and episode 9 is very different. Like, I want that to be the case, because like we can't be the same person and grow. But with that said, the question I ask all of the guests is, if you could go back and give your younger, so this is pre-Rock Nation Sarah, I want you to go to that person. If you could go back and give advice to pre-Rock Nation Sarah, what would you say? What advice would you give to your younger self before starting out?
It sounds very cliche, but it's something very relevant to me even now. I think I would tell my younger self to face my fears head on. I think that is why it's a decision I made just last year to do. I think at the time, pre-Rock Nation Sarah, I could find every excuse as to why I can't go out to New York, why I can't do this, why I can't move back from LA, why I, can't be successful in the music industry. I don't know anyone. I've never done this before. I don't know anything. There's no music programs at my school. Like, I could find any excuse to account for why I couldn't do whatever it was. And I think I was like extremely consumed by what people thought of me. I think I was not confident. I was not a confident person at all. People always told me I like read confidently, but it was like, what are you saying? Like, what are you seeing? I was just like, I would be so confused. I'm like, I don't understand how that's your conclusion. And because I didn't have that confidence and that like self-assured nature, I became very malleable to my environment and to the people around me, and my validation didn't come from myself or from God or from things that I really cared about, but it came from my peers. And if you put your validation in the people that are around you, that's just like, what is that? That's sand. That is just like crumbling sand. That is not substantive at all. I don't even know if that's a word. Substantial. But yeah, so I would say myself I would face I should face my fears head on,
Mm.
because I think when fears become um when you get to the other side and you realize like there really wasn't that much to be scared of, and even if there was, you are a better person now on the other side of it, or you've learned more and you've taken something with you from that experience. You realize that, I mean, I think that's what that kind of contributes to my confidence now, is like being able to decide very decisively, this is something I'm scared of, that is very intimidating, and I'm gonna do it, because this looming cloud of fear doesn't serve me in any way.
Mm.
It doesn't serve the my story, the community that I'm a part of, the people that I care about. If I'm held back from this fear, it's not only taking away from myself, but from everything that I love. Um, and I think, yeah, that last year is kind of when I made that decision for myself, because I was kind of fed up with just being restrained by things that, I have a very overactive mind. I will think of every scenario. I will, think of anything that could go wrong. And I've been intentional about trying to like change that thought pattern. But it started with, this scares you, do it.
Mm.
This is intimidating, do it.
Mm.
And a lot of the things that really held me back personally and professionally kind of have just dissolved. And I was just like, wow, this really took up so much space in my life for so many years. And I don't think people realize how attached you get to your story or your fears, or your, like, that becomes a part of your identity. And I didn't want to be defined by the things that I was scared of anymore. And so in making that decision, as life would have it, it was the toughest year of my life. Like, it wasn't just, yes, I faced my fears and that was tough, but it was just, then real life also just slapped me in the face as well. And I lost people, and I did just really had to go through some very heavy times in the midst of also facing those fears. So it was just like chaos. Yes, last year was absolute chaos. But on the other side of it, and still kind of, I mean, it's an ongoing thing. Like, you still kind of go through it. I feel so much closer to being myself in like my true form. And again, it's like, it's not this destination that I think I'm gonna reach. It's this ongoing thing. So long as I'm always getting closer, then I'm happy with that. But yeah, if I would, not that I wish I faced my fears earlier, or I decided to take them head on, because I think however things pan out is how it's meant to. And I think my timing is always going to be the worst in relationship to divine timing. But yeah, so I don't, I'm glad that my younger self did life the way she did.
Yeah.
But if there was any advice I would give, it was to, your fears are not as scary on the other side.
That is great advice, and I pray at least one person follows that. You got that a lot quicker than I did. I didn't get that till I was in my late 30s. And it took, like, life slapped me in the face to kind of say, all right, like, you the thing you feared the most is now starting to happen, and like, you're on the other side of it, and like, it's still here, and you still got a lot to be thankful for. So like, what happens if you just like start running through those brick walls, and then you realize like, you put the walls up, they don't even exist. Like, people don't think as much about you as you think, and people who do really don't, and people who don't like do. So it's like, there's no like right or wrong way. You just kind of learn, and you're absolutely right. On the other side of fear, there's always like a moment of like, damn, like, okay, I've learned something. And when you learn something, you become a little better, and you can apply it and share it with others, which is why we're here. So thank you for that those amazing words and this amazing hour. I apologize again for the technical difficulties. I look forward to, I'm putting it out there now, so when we do the episode where we fly you out first class and put you in a hotel, I will pull this clip up to say, remember I told you that we will fly you out. That's success for me right now. Is I just want the day where I'm like, hey, go ahead and book Sarah for that convo. But until then, obviously, we will continue to communicate here on WhatsApp, thank God, because you're all over the world. And I appreciate you being on the 24/7 Artist Podcast, Lo.
No, thank you. I'm very glad we did this conversation. And I'm very glad to see all this come to fruition as well for you guys. Like, I remember when this was just an idea. So to see it all come together is very inspiring. So
this is
it makes me want to have a radio show. Like this is
literally me facing my fear, like me looking at me on the camera. You already like I hate this. So like it took 30 something years for me to get on camera. And then I get on and the first thing you say is you have a great radio voice, and I'm like, what? Like, I could have been a radio DJ in college. Like that was my dream. That's what I wanted to do, and I didn't even try out. I didn't even like do it because I was like, nobody wants to hear me talk. I hate my voice. So
no.
All right.
Face that fear.
I'm facing it in real time. All right, Slow. Thank you very much. Or Sarah, sorry. Slow is her nickname, y'all. So and we will be back soon with another Slow episode with her in the studio, in our really cool studio. I'm envisioning it. Put it out there. Pray.
It's happening.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, you do.
All right.